The steps that we are going to work on the wing are going to be installing the servo, drilling the holes and putting in the screw, installing the servo arms to your the servo wheels that come with your servos, and installing the double truss servo horns, and then attaching all the linkages. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and cut. There's two little slots. The wood's already been pre-cut here. All we have to do is cut away the film covering. Make sure you get a nice sharp X-Acto blade so that you're not tearing the film away. Alright, so now we've got two cavities here that the servo horns are going to slide into, just like this. And before we actually assemble everything, we're definitely going to put epoxy on these, 5-minute epoxy, slide them in, let it cure, and that's that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is install the servo. The servo is going to be installed with the arm further away from the hinge, so just like this, not like this. So this side. Go ahead and line it up where it's going to be. Use a drill. I have a little hand drill that works really well for stuff like this. Just kind of make a few little guide pilot holes or marks. You can also use a pencil if you want, but I like using this because it's a little longer, the angle's a little straighter. Then you can take the servo out and use the hand drill to go right back over those holes that you started. And when I say this plane has been prefabricated as much as possible, when I say it's a fast build, it really is. You can actually see on this wood here that they've actually already, you can tell by the flakes of this wood, they've already put CA glue in this wood. So it's already been hardened for you. So you don't even have to cut your holes and then put the CA on. It's ready to go. And the other problem, this servo I actually pulled from another prototype that I was going to use, and you can see I put the glue on the wood to harden it, and when I put these on, they stuck to it. So this has already been done. You won't have to worry about that. The next step is going to be to install your servo arm onto your servo horn that comes with your servo, the circle horn. You can see that if you spin this a certain way, the holes will line up. All four of them will line up with the servo arm. This is a high-tech servo, and I think most of them have these same universal inputs. You are going to, for the screws supplied, you're going to need to widen these holes using a 5/64 inch bit. Just kind of drill them out. Again, I'm just using a little hand drill, which is plenty for this. Just line up the servo arm with the servo horn in those four holes. Insert one of the bolts through. And you can get one of the nuts started on the bolt to kind of lock it into place, and then continue placing the other four. And securing the nuts on the last four bolts. You also want to be sure to use some thread lock before you tighten these down all the way. I like to just kind of get them started and then pour some between the bolt and the plastic. And use a wrench and a screwdriver to tighten them all the way down. And that will be it. Alright, and I've got a 2-part 5-minute epoxy here. Just mix equal parts. I've got my super fancy epoxy stick, just anything that you can mix and apply it with. So you've got 5 minutes to work with this. Once you start mixing it, try and get it as smooth and even, as well mixed as possible, so that the hardener and the epoxy form as good of a bond as possible. And try and make enough that you're not going to have to mix it twice. Okay, so go ahead and put the epoxy, especially down towards the end, as when we insert it, it will smear up towards the servo horn, and cover up to about where it's going to go into the wood. Try not to make too much so it's not, a mess everywhere. And then we'll put it into the slot. And kind of move up and down a couple times, let it spread in there. And then just go ahead and wipe up the excess carefully. Try not to spread it all over. After you get the majority of it up, you can use a little bit of alcohol to clean it up some more. But before I use alcohol, I'm going to get the other one in place. So repeating the same procedure. Definitely want to get epoxy in both of those holes because that's what's going to kind of spread out as it is slid in. Okay, push it down, make sure they're equal height, and they've done a great job. The factory's done a great job of getting those slots cut perfectly. Let's go ahead and clean up the excess first with just a plain paper towel. Taking a little bit of alcohol. Just use it to help clean up any light residue around it. That'll help keep a cleaner looking wing. The next step is going to be installing the servo. You can either pre-snake through some string and tie it to it, pull it through. I'm just going to worry about that later, just using a piece of wire and pulling it through to the outside of the wing. So for now I'm just going to put the wire in. Place the servo so that the gears are away from the aileron. We've already pre-drilled, one at a time. Begin screwing them in. Don't screw any of them all the way down until you start getting them snug. Sort of like a car tire, you want to work around the horn. Last few turns and you're done. The servo arm is ready to go. That just needs to be slipped on. Make sure it's pretty well centered. And then move it back to 90 degrees with the servo. Okay, so now we're ready to connect the servo rod to the arm and the horn using our connecting rod bolts and nuts. You'll simply line them up, get it as close to 90 degrees as you can and as close to flush with the wing in equal distance from horn to arm. And then simply insert the bolt into the arm. I opened up the hole that I was going to use to accommodate using a 3/32 inch bit. I'm going to go ahead and pop this off just to get this on here.
Okay, I hold.
And I'm going to leave it on there kind of loosely for now to make sure the distance is correct. So I'm not going to tighten that. I can get in there with some pliers and or a wrench. Place that back on at about 90 degrees. Get the aileron flush with the wing and make sure that's about right. And it looks like it needs to be just a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and loosen that up a little bit more. Get the aileron flush and try again. And that looks like it's going to be just about right. So again, put the bolt through and put the nut on the opposite side of the servo horn. These are nylon nuts, so you don't need to apply any thread lock to these two. Be sure, especially using metal gears, that you do use thread lock on your servo bolt. The gas plane, it will vibrate out on you if you don't. Tighten those down and you're done.